It's Thursday the 26th of January 2023. Welcome to the Water Action Platform. My name's Piers Clark. I'm the chairman of the technology consultancy ISLE. We work with water utilities all around the world, helping them identify and adopt new technology. Now today we have 4 stories for you. How did the World Water Tech, one of the leading conferences for bringing technologies and investors together, grow into what it is today? We will also hear from FYLD, a tech company that is changing how water utilities operate out in the field, keeping people safe and processes efficient. And our finally story is, I think, the best one we've ever had. I will share with you how you can enjoy your favourite pasta dish without creating an unnecessarily large carbon footprint. Guilt-free carbonara. What could be better? But we start with a very special story, an investigation you could call it, looking into why it is that so many water and sanitation aid projects in low-income countries fail. Why is it that despite the well-meaning and generous efforts of donors, many of the newly built assets are abandoned, left for scrap, often just months after they were constructed? Now, we have some direct experience of this within ISLE. When we formed ISLE, my wife and I decided that we would donate 25% of the profits that we made to water and sanitation projects. We gave money to charities and we directly funded specific projects. It started well, but our close experience with a water pump project in Kenya highlighted the incredibly complex issues which such activities create. And I'm ashamed to say that I think, all things considered, in that particular circumstance, we probably made the situation worse, not better. Now, often donors don't think about what happens beyond their initial donation. They don't follow through and check that the shiny new asset that they've just funded is actually still operating, still doing what it should do 1, 2 or 5 years later. If they did, I suspect they'd be disappointed. The proportion of water projects which fail is staggeringly high. The key question, therefore, is why and how do we change this? Now, ISLE's experience in Kenya led to the formation of REEF, the Revolving Economic Empowerment Fund, where we provide low-cost loans to entrepreneurs working in water and sanitation projects in low-income countries. Now, our logic in creating REEF was that this would hopefully ensure that local people properly own the projects and have the skills and expertise and support network necessary to keep those assets running. Over the past 10 years, we've supported many businesses through REEF, from Haiti to Cambodia, from Africa to India. But it's a drop in the ocean. Now, thankfully, over the past 8 years, a consortium involving the Institute for Water Education at IHE Delft, Manage 4S, Mindshapers Zambia, Zampeckers and Zambia CRB Association have been investigating, testing and trialling ways to address this problem. Here is a special report on what they've done and what they've discovered. Watch it carefully, because it may change forever how you engage with water aid projects.
Kina Claudia Kashandwa, Mamuzi Monizi Kuma Ilwendo, Village, area Mtema.
Inawe Manuel Chivela, mwanangu wefu mamuzi waka Sauli.
Mazalo akalile kuwa eza mikopano yao na 2010, tuwa 2010 hato kwenda kwenye 2017.
Menunyanda, kuya kwa Messi, kwa Nuka, likwena niona, yaifamata. Vave akala nikao, vave amatanki ni masola. Masola avatika avea hante. Vave ile umaswe kuli kufumana Mexico nji kwa ma 15. Kuli vona valulele kuti seza kulivelela ze mukanyanda beta muikesese lusinganyikile ne lukopanisa tushiereni peto kali tonolo lufumani ka injini kwa kuwotela tafule ya masola. CCS kwa teni kikandu kakuya hela fapo.
Kwa choice for the Wilton Gikuli, Milano Nazilaka kwa 15 hours, kusana mei. Kuzohoba toro vera wana PPCR.
Peto na go vapu lufumani Messi vave akala nikao wavea matanki ni masola. Masola avasika wavea hante. Ruketa vayoye salire nagoya Maria.
For development professionals working in rural Africa, the remains of failed water projects are a common sight. It can be deeply discouraging, especially because access to safe water remains the priority challenge in many poor communities. Impact studies commonly list lack of local ownership as key factor leading to unsustainable investments. And indeed, visiting rural areas during project missions raise baffling questions why communities show so little interest in maintaining donor-financed infrastructure. But a typical field visit only lasts a few days, during which we rush through meetings, workshops, and events. Community visits are brief, locations are dictated by schedule restrictions and reachability, and encounters are stage-managed and limited by language barriers. The work presented in this video takes place in a country that recognizes 72 different languages, a single district can cover more than 1,000 square kilometers, and flooding cuts off hundreds of villages from outside access for 3 to 4 months a year. Only deep engagement teaches how many project investments turn into relics for a reason. Neglect results not just from attitude and lacking capacity, but reflects projects that were irrelevant to begin with or implemented with serious flaws. However, one flaw of development projects, maybe even more critical, is the fact that projects do not have to deal with the consequences of failure or costs they incur. Once a project ends, organizations rarely have something to offer to a community that calls to fix a problem. We just move on.
Nakakuba community neruiziba neke katengo kakafiti zete omulemezi lero babulese polisi ke baya hulufa fast week wakensa kulimeza kayo banidizwai konone basika otwelakelezo yalona ni kima pipe siri mu lwabanga nibutata bakupumbula mapipe yaluna bakensa kulimeza alizwai yale ati banga mapipe luna kakuba community lwasinyehelwanga bakensa butata avo
Konzi mina kuvatafela mukwa wakuyesesa aiva lukataha kuchinja masola kakupo yalunafela kamake yalunafela.
Sustainable investment needs communities able to negotiate with projects implemented in their space and then disconnect infrastructure assets from the bilateral relationship with that particular project. But how do we get there? A group of grassroots activists and development professionals spent the last 6 years investigating in Western Zambia how we can change the dynamic between poor communities and expert-driven projects. 2 insights stood out. First, many communities do not believe that autonomous initiative is even a possibility. They seem almost conditioned to wait for assistance. Second, communities have headmen and often a multitude of committees, but that does not mean that there is institutionalized decision-making about what is good for the community. Many committees are formed for and around investments by projects, but they often stay isolated. That means they never turn into the type of social institution able to carry a mandate for owning and maintaining infrastructure. Village activation challenges communities to start a conversation about where they want to go. To make this possible, the approach combines inspiration from a respected local traditional leader, a tailored group of peer role models from villages in the area, and a short program that involves women, youth, and all committees and groups in the village. The goal is to discover what is desired and possible with available resources when there is no distraction from an outside party with their own agenda. Which means that maybe the most important aspect of village activation is a strict policy to hide any and all involvement from donors, experts, and NGOs.
Presenting community leaders with their idea to decide on their own agenda created a strong positive response. For all the villages, it was a new challenge to organize this kind of meetings by themselves. Many doubted they have the resources to do anything, but learning what people like them had achieved created a lot of energy and activity.
Ya uveli kwa masola ao kulia susi mesi neluo lukopani ni mind siepati wakupo yaluna chwale nelwabulelela uli bona balubulela kuti seza kulivelela ze mukanyanda beta muikesese chwale kwa kuikesesa mane matusi syahulu mukopa noone utusi syahulu chwale lusinganyikile nelukopanisa tusyeleni tuomwa mahaya twakunyandanyanda peto kalitonolo lufumani ka injini kakuwotela tafule ya masola peto luyilema musitu kulema misumo lwavea kuyepa lwayepa lukuvea kwati ni mumbeta wa masola peto nakoluveile mumbeta wa masola kiona twale lu konaktie mawaya peto lwakonakita mesi afita hante.
Now, wasn't that incredible? The look on Emmanuel's face when he said, they told me there wasn't any money to do the repairs, we'd need to find a way forward ourselves, was just heartbreaking. So what can we do? Well, talking with Ellen from Manage4S, the wonderfully eloquent lady in that video, there are 3 asks. Well, firstly, do not think of community activation as a project. It is not a project. It is something project partners and organisations should consider before starting activities in poor and marginalised areas. You have to start engagement with the local communities from a completely different basis to that which has perhaps more traditionally been used. Secondly, Ellen invites you to involve her and her team if you think they can help. They will be utterly delighted to be your partner in shaping discussions around how community activation could be applied. The current approach was developed in Western Zambia, and they'd like to explore the potential relevance and ways to adapt the approach for communities in other countries and other regions. Within Zambia, there is excellent demand now for communities to conduct community activations in other areas and other chiefdoms. The formation of an activation team and the background support for a full roadshow in a new area is actually pretty cost effective at around 5,000 to 10,000 euros. So the third ask is that if you or your organisation is interested in getting involved or learning more, please let me know and I will connect you to Ellen and her colleagues. Now, moving on to a different topic, twice a year, investors and tech companies come together at the World Water Tech events. In February, it's usually held in Europe, and in October, it's normally held in North America. Now, in a world where there are many water tech conferences, World Water Tech stands out. It's built a strong reputation as one of the best places for emerging technologies to meet with investors and utilities. Now, as a signed-up, card-carrying supporter of anything that helps bring new technology forward, I connected with Jennie Moss, Managing Director for Rethink, and the brains behind the original World Water Tech vision. Jennie, it is wonderful to be with you today. Thank you for taking the time. Let's jump straight in. What you've created with World Water Tech is incredible. And the journey began 12 years ago, was it? How did it start?
Yeah, no, our first event was in 2012, and I launched it. It was actually the first event we ever did as Rethink event, so it was our founding event. I'd been working a lot in the energy industry, both in traditional sort of oil and gas and also in renewable energy, organising events and writing articles about those industries, and water kept coming up again and again when I was talking to people.
It's the most interesting, that's why.
Of course, and also the most necessary. You know, the answer was always, nothing will work if we don't have enough water, you know, and actually that's our biggest problem. And so that's how I conceived the idea for World Water Tech. And the goal was really to sort of bring together an event that encouraged investors to connect with technology companies, but also to make it a really international event. So to bring as many different representatives of different countries to London as we could.
Okay, and so from day one, it was about technology and investors. because that's it. It's got this unique positioning of being, this is, if you're an early stage tech company and you're looking for investors, this is the place to come to. Yeah, there are other places, other conferences will do other things, but this is the place to come to. That's incredible that you have that insight, because your background isn't in R&D or technology, is it?
No, it's not actually. I've been a journalist, and then I was a conference producer. So I guess, I just feel really passionately about, there's so much innovation happening and so many people doing exciting things, but actually it's often really at a tiny, small scale, and it's happening in labs and it's happening in people's offices. And actually, how can you bring that to scale? How can you make the connections happen between the right people in order for those, technologies to get adopted? So that's how we've tried to structure the events, both the program and also the networking.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here on that one. All right, so it's been 11 years, and I think so. This year's one will be the 12th. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
So how have they changed over the years?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously in size, I think we're probably 3 times the size we were when we first started. But also, there've been waves of different areas of interest. And I think, when we first started, it was a lot about kind of smart water and about wastewater. And also, quite a lot of venture capital interest. Then there were a few years where maybe the venture capital companies weren't sure because the return on investment was so slow. Yeah. But then, of course, in recent years, with the emphasis on climate smart technologies and climate investing and ESG, actually, we're beginning to see more and more money and interest in the sector again. So that's really, really exciting.
Excellent. And any success stories that are worth mentioning?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we've seen a lot over the years, kind of startups that have come that we've then seen doing kind of R&D projects with utilities. Also, one we've seen just recently, of course, Cyrenix, who were one of our very first kind of startup presenters, just being acquired by Badger. So that's really exciting. That's just one example of a startup story.
I love it. I know what you mean, because we run something similar, as you know, with the TAG program, and you sort of, they're not your children, but they feel like your children that you nurture and support, and you take enormous joy in watching these companies sort of get traction with utilities or investors, or as in the case with Cyrenix, actually completing that particular phase of their journey. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, last question. So this year, tell me about this year's event, because where's it happening? Give me some of that detail.
Yep, so we'll be back on the 21st and 22nd of February, again in London. It's going to be really exciting. We've actually teamed up with British Water, so the British Water International Reception is on the Monday night, so there'll be lots and lots of people in town. And then, of course, you've got the 2-day summit, and we've got a lot of big groups coming over from Africa, from India, from Latin America. So it's going to be, probably our most international event to date.
That's what we like to hear. I wish you the very best with that. Thank you for your time, Jennie. Have a great rest.
Brilliant. Nice to chat, Piers. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
The European World Water Tech Conference is being held next month in London on February the 21st and the 22nd. Visit the WWT website for more details. We now come to our technology showcase, and this week it's FYLD, spelt FYLD. Now, to my delight, I discovered that Carl Simons, a former colleague of mine from when we both worked at Thames Water, was now the chief futurist at FYLD. So I persuaded him to give us the lowdown.
Carl, it's wonderful to see you again. I look back on our time together at Thames Water fondly, but now you're working for FYLD, spelled FYLD. Tell me, why did you join FYLD and what do they do?
Right, okay, hiya Piers. Yes, I do look back fondly on our time together. So FYLD, that's easy, right? The answer to that is the ability to prevent harm on a wider scale. I've always had a very deep social purpose throughout my entire 36-year working career now, which has always been about the ability to prevent harm, and I've dedicated my career to the preservation of life. So what I saw in this organization was the ability to work much wider than I could in a single organization. I've always worked in major corporates and led some fantastic organizations across Australia, India, the Middle East, into Europe and the UK, and now in the US. But this was very, very different in terms of, one, it's a tech world and a startup organization. And secondly, it's into the sectors that I enjoy working in: utilities, highways, rail, oil and gas, the very much the network end of really remote field operations.
Excellent. Well, and I know that there is a 3-minute, rather swanky video that describes what FYLD does, which we'll play right now.
From emergency repairs to day-to-day maintenance, field teams work around the clock to repair the networks and infrastructure essential to our lives. Yet communication across field teams is often logged in multiple places, including emails, calls, texts, and paperwork. This makes field jobs difficult to manage, information hard to share, and communicating with contractors an admin headache. Until now. FYLD is an easy-to-use digital tool that transforms the way field workers communicate and operate. Designed by field workers, for field workers, FYLD brings real-time communication to your entire workforce, including your supply chain partners. Here's how it works. Watch this team use FYLD's AI technology and communication features to help them respond to a burst water main. A severe weather front is forecast. FYLD identifies all active jobs which may be impacted and pushes alerts through the app to affected field teams. The alert notifies the team that their job may be impacted by severe weather and provides a time estimate of when the weather will hit. FYLD asks the team to pause, reassess their risk and determine if the job can be completed safely. The team decide the job is not safe to complete in the new weather conditions and log in the app that they will close the site until the following day. 30 minutes before the weather hits, FYLD prompts the team to down tools, secure the site and complete a job wrap-up as a handover for the next crew. They estimate how long it will take for the incoming team to finish the job and note any specialist skills or equipment that may be required. Meanwhile, a remote manager is following the job's progress in real time through the app. She reviews the job wrap-up to match the most suitable handover team to the job. The following day, before arriving on site, the handover team will review the job's history in FYLD, prepare and pick up any extra supplies they may need. Once on site, the handover process is completed by a quick virtual risk assessment. The handover team confirms in the app that the site is in the state they had expected. FYLD consolidates communications across your entire field workforce, keeping all parties connected and informed.
Well, that was fantastic, and there wasn't, crystal clear what it now does. But Carl, I know you've been doing something with a water company. I don't think we can mention them, but a water company here in Europe. Can you give me some headlines as to what we've seen?
So this is really exciting. FYLD is a risk and productivity solution. So although we look at the safety end of human protection, we also are a problem-solving organization. And if you start with a problem, you know what I mean, for water companies across the UK and worldwide, to be honest with you, leakage. Leakage is a major infrastructure issue and a national problem for us in the UK. Huge regulatory fines against water companies for explosion of leakage issues. But the reality was that as much as you have things like aging infrastructure, population expansion, the changing weather patterns, we've got freeze and then thaw, and then the summer temperatures are now soaring. You've got the price hasn't increased in the last 10 years for the water bills in the UK. So where electricity and gas are going astronomical, the regulators kept tight control around the water companies. Those are things pretty much that are challenges, but out with generally the organization's control. They have mains replacement programs, but one of the biggest challenges we face is time. the time between
the one
leak
thing you can't buy is time. Yeah.
Yes, and but it's all about, and I faced it when the last 10 years leading Thames at a group health and safety director level, it was always about, how quickly can we respond when things don't go as we plan. So when you have those mains burst, the time between leak detection and leak cessation is a major issue. Now then, what FYLD enables through the risk visualization is the ability to redesign the process of operations and liaison between customer, client, contractor, to lead to the ability to reduce time and therefore reduce leakage.
Okay.
Now then, what we've done recently, if I can just finish on this.
So that all sounds great, but what's the actual data? What have you found from your trial?
Right. Okay. So all companies will measure that time between leak cessation and leak detection and how they go about managing it. So what we've done within FYLD is we've reduced, or let's say we've reduced the time by 35%, which is a massive saving. It's going to lead to 500 million litres of water saved in the coming year, 2023, by one single water company. Now then, when you start thinking about those metrics, 500 million litres of water, in the grand scheme of leakage across the UK, but to a single water company, that is a huge amount of water that we're going to save from going into the environment.
Yeah. And at the risk of stating the blindingly obvious, of course, it's not just the water. It now means that you've got the teams who can do 35% more work, I assume, because they're doing it 35% quicker. So there's a bottom line efficiency, economic benefit as well as an environmental one, correct?
And the safety benefit as well. Yeah. You think the minute we have leaks within the UK, it affects the local environment, transport infrastructure, the individuals, the members of the public involved. There's so many benefits towards what we're doing at the minute. And it's really exciting, Piers. And I'm working with several water companies in the UK now towards how we map out this solution and go wider with it. And I'm very excited, as you can see, by the opportunity to go wider.
What I think I liked most about that segment was the fact that FYLD was, and I quote, designed by field workers for field workers. The benefits are not just keeping staff safe in the field, but it optimises productivity, saves costs, and as you heard there, when applied to leakage, saves water too. FYLD have got great case studies and are now looking to expand to other parts of the world, so if you want to know more, I will happily introduce you to Carl. And go on, admit it, you also want the title Chief Futurist. And finally, we've all heard of the water, energy, food nexus. It's usually in the context of the power industry or biofuel crops. But what about the nexus in your kitchen? Barilla, the company famous for selling pasta around the world, have recently demonstrated that we could save 80% of our macaroni making CO2 emissions by not boiling the pasta for quite as long as we've been used to. You've seen these little tables on the side of the pasta packets. Well, Barilla now helpfully provides a table showing the passive cooking times for various shapes of pasta. Professor Giorgio Parisi, who actually won the 2021 Physics Nobel Prize, agrees. In a Facebook post, he said that turning off the heat midway through cooking pasta and then covering it with a lid and waiting for the residual heat to finish the job reduces the carbon burden. But what does he know? He's only got a Nobel Prize for physics. So Professor David Fairhurst, a mathematician and physicist at Nottingham Trent University here in the UK, now he researches phase changes and the interactions of liquids with solids. He did what every good scientist would do, and he asked his students to prove it. Now, what this revealed was that when cooking dried pasta, there are two processes which take place. Firstly, water penetrates the pasta, rehydrating and softening it, and secondly, the pasta heats up, causing the proteins to expand and thus become edible. Now, in conventional cooking, one would put 100 grams of pasta into 1 litre of boiling water for 10 to 12 minutes. The breakdown of the energy is depicted here. Now, it's pretty clear from this graphic that around 60% of the energy is used to keeping the water boiling, the yellow segment in this pie chart. So anything that can be done to reduce that cooking time has a significant impact on the overall energy demand.
Parisisi's method of turning off the hob midway and allowing the pasta to cook in the residual heat halves the energy demand, and obviously this method would be even more effective on a ceramic hob because they're slower to cool down. However, just when you thought we'd come to the end of this fascinating tale, there is more. By separating the processes of rehydration and heating, it's possible to reduce the energy demand even lower. Dried pasta can be fully rehydrated by pre-soaking it in cold water for 2 hours, requiring no energy at all. The pasta then needs to be dropped into boiling water, but what? Asked these particular researchers in their paper published in Science for Food and Agriculture. Who'd have thought there'd be so many journals which would have an interest in this topic? What, they asked, if we were to change the ratio of water to pasta? Could there be even more savings? Now, Nottingham Trent University found that, in their opinion, halving the water volume resulted in perfect pasta, but reducing it to 1/3 was unsatisfactory. Now, that's all very well, but what do a bunch of British students know? So to get the definitive response, surely you need to ask some Italians. So we did.
No.
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 Now those were genuinely some of my Italian aisle colleagues, and their response may have been compelling, but it's not a clean sweep. One of my colleagues, Antonia Frisia, is a particular pasta aficionado. Quite difficult to say. She is proud to claim that she eats around 100 kilograms of pasta every year, and her view is a little different.
Absolutely, yes.
Joking apart, around 16 million tonnes of pasta are produced annually worldwide. This means that around 400 million portions of pasta are served every day. If pre-soaked in cold water, we could save 73 to 86% of the carbon emissions. Now, that is a big number. Now, one final thought before I finally let this topic go. One of my Italian colleagues, Gianluca, told me that this debate about pasta cooking has been exercising the minds of the great Italian nonnas, grandmothers to you and me, who better to consult on this key topic. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but apparently the debate amongst the nonnas goes something like, OK, so we can turn off the gas and let the pasta cook in the hot water. But what about the ragu? That still needs at least 8 hours before it's perfect. With that, we come to the end of this week's broadcast. I once again thank all our contributors and sponsors. Next month's broadcast will be on February the 23rd at the usual times. Keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.